President Trump is now calling the budding U.S. relationship with Venezuela extraordinary. He posted on Truth Social that his administration is dealing well with acting President Delcy Rodriguez. Trump says oil is starting to flow and that the money raised will soon be helping the people of Venezuela. We want to take you there live because Energy Secretary Chris Wright is in the country touring oil and natural gas facilities alongside the interim president. The secretary joins us now. Secretary Wright, thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us. You've said that the goal is to transition to representative government and free trade in Venezuela, and that Delcy Rodriguez recognizes that free elections are a necessary condition, yet she still claims that Nicolás Maduro is the country's legitimate leader. How do you explain that contradiction, and what has she been told about her role in the country's future?
Look, Delcy is the interim president right now. She's working with the United States, I would say, in tremendous cooperative efforts to engineer President Trump's just landmark change in diplomacy. Here, a country that was sinking deeply is on the rapid rise without any bullets fired, without any American troops on the ground, and no American taxpayer funds. So we're focused on the future and where Venezuela is going. Myself, Delcy, the U.S. government, and the authorities in Venezuela.
Do you know what she's been told about her future role in government in Venezuela? Should she be allowed to run in future elections?
Oh, look, yeah, it's not us that are going to tell Delcy what her future role is. You know, that's ultimately going to be up to the Venezuelan people, not up to the United States government. We are here to steer reforms that'll enshrine property rights, rule of law, improve the conditions for people in Venezuela so that we've had 8 million people flee the country. We want conditions good so people come back to Venezuela. The crime and drug threat to the United States gets reduced. And then we have enormous commercial opportunities for Venezuelans, for Americans, and the whole hemisphere. But Delcy's role in the future of Venezuela, that's going to be up to the Venezuelan people.
And obviously those reforms are directly tied to energy and U.S. investment in infrastructure. I wonder if U.S. energy companies begin investing in Venezuela before elections are held, what leverage would the administration still have to enforce those reforms should those elections not come first?
Oh, those investments are already happening. Already. We're here at a Chevron facility. They are already meaningfully stepping up their investments in Venezuela. We have dozens of American companies that have come down or about to come down and are looking at opportunities. We have former large players here looking about the right way to come back. So look, things are not going to wait till elections to start moving in the right direction. Of course, the full reform and transformation won't be done until after elections. But in the meantime, there's so much that can be done. And the leverage we have is we control the flow of the largest, the dominant industry of Venezuela. We control the flow of funds from oil. Delcy wants to work with us. We want to keep that money flowing. And of course, as you say, if Delcy has aspirations to be a leader in Venezuela in the long run, she's certainly got to deliver for the Venezuelan people to raise popularity.
Can you tell us what specific plans U.S. firms have shared with you or members of the administration about investments in Venezuelan oil?
Oh, look, as we stand here right now, this is a major crude processing facility. North of $100 million will be invested to upgrade and increase the throughput capacity of this facility. That's a Chevron facility. We were at a Chevron field earlier today. They're on target to double production in that particular field in the next 12 to 18 months and probably quintuple it over the next 5 years. Those dollars are already flowing. That activity is already there. There's a bunch of other companies, service companies that want to come down and serve the large oil and gas production companies. We're talking to people that are very interested to work on the electricity grid. Venezuela's also had a collapse in their electricity production. You want to improve people's lives, you got to get them more electricity. All of this stuff, I think, is going to happen relatively quickly.
A lot of that, Secretary, is in contrast to what we've actually heard from many of these energy companies who say that they're uncertain about the future of Venezuela, not only because of political issues, but also even in Trump's first term, the administration had accused the state oil company, PDVSA, of corruption and even criminal activity, and they still owe something like $60 billion in external debt. You're asking these companies to work with them. So what security guarantees are you offering?
So we're not going to, the U.S. government is not going to offer physical security or economic security. American businesses and international businesses, they do business all around the world in all different political and risk environments. Venezuela is no different in that. It's just, it was one of the absolute riskiest, worst business environments there was 2 months ago. Today it's meaningfully better. You know, is it Norway? Of course not. That's going to take time, but it's moving that direction. There's already a new hydrocarbon law. I think there'll be modifications and enhancements to that. You're going to see other reforms in Venezuelan laws that are driven by the government here in Venezuela. Their whole incentive profile, the whole mission of the Venezuelan leadership has changed.
Secretary, I do wonder how then you respond to, for example, the CEO of ConocoPhillips, Ryan Lance, saying that the first priority of the company is making sure that the significant debt that is owed by the Venezuelan government is paid back. If they're focused on collecting debts and you're saying that they're interested in investing, but that the money that is now going to be recruited from these profits of oil sales is going to go to the Venezuelan people, how do you square that?
That's what businesses do. You know, certainly ConocoPhillips, of course, is in active dialogue with the government of Venezuela. Who knows if a deal will be struck? But I think you're going to see multiple deals where the debt that's owed them is swapped, meaning used as payment to buy assets in Venezuela. So instead of bringing cash, they're going to convert their debt into rights and oil reserves and operating facilities, and they'll move forward from there. But those are business negotiations. But you're going to see plenty of those deals. Then Venezuela has very serious fiscal problems, as you've just said, Boris. They're not going to be gone in a year. They're not going to be gone in 2 or 3 years. But they were only headed one direction before. Now the prospect of realizing value from those large debts, whether it's through cash repayments or swap into assets, now that's real. Those dialogues are active, and you'll see announcements on that in the coming months and certainly in the coming years.
And Secretary, as you know, U.S. control over Venezuelan oil interests has meant that oil imports to Cuba have ground to a halt. There are daily blackouts that have worsened. Essential services are being cut. It's only going to get worse. The concern is that that will mostly hurt the people of Cuba, not the leadership, which is largely insulated. So what is the U.S. prepared to do there? Are you aware of specific conditions that need to be met by the Cuban government to restore energy imports?
So look, the situation in Venezuela was driven in part by the dire state of the population in Venezuela, and you're right. That same condition is occurring in Cuba and headed in the wrong direction. What's the U.S. interest there? It's the same idea. Like, there's 10 million people there we wish had a better quality of life. We wish we didn't harbor Russians and Iranians in nearby states. So might President Trump also use his creative diplomacy to achieve massive geostrategic wins without guns and without American taxpayer money? I wouldn't bet against that.
Secretary Chris Wright, we'll see what comes next. We appreciate you sharing your time and point of view.
Thank you, Boris.